Hello, and welcome to Haunted Slumber. Before we begin, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always enjoy reading them. If you enjoy slow, eerie stories that gently carry you through the darkness and towards sleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, get comfortable, let your body relax, and allow the sounds of the outside world to slowly fade into silence. Tonight, as the night grows quiet and sleep begins to find you, a haunting story is waiting to be told. So close your eyes, listen carefully, and let yourself drift into haunted slumber. Story 1. I am an artist, so I know how lighting works. I know what shadows do. I know how they stretch, bend, split, and move depending on where the light is coming from. I know how one object can cast more than one shadow if there is more than one light source. I have drawn enough street scenes, portraits, figures, rooms, lamps, candles, and night views to understand that. I have spent years studying how light touches a shape and how darkness falls away from it. That is why I know there should not have been a fourth shadow. I understand that sounds strange. People who do not think about light much might not understand why that bothered me so much. They might say, it was just another light, or maybe you were tired, or maybe the fog made things look weird. And believe me, I have already told myself all of that over and over again. I have tried to explain it in every normal way I can think of. Different lights can create different shadows. That is basic. If you stand between several lamps, your shadow can appear in more than one direction at the same time. Sometimes one shadow is darker than the others. Sometimes one is stretched thin, while another is short and sharp. Sometimes fog can soften the edges and make everything look wrong. I know that. I am an artist. I should know that. But sometimes something can be technically possible and still feel wrong. Sometimes your eyes see something that your brain tries to explain, but your body understands before your mind does. Your stomach drops. The hair on your arms rises. Your feet want to stop moving even though you do not know why. That was what happened to me. For some context, I had just come back home after going out to grab snacks from the nearby 7-Eleven. I know it was a stupid time to go out. It is 11:41 at night right now as I am writing this, and the thing I am talking about happened earlier, maybe around 10:30, or a little after that. I was not gone long. At least I should not have been gone long. The store is close enough that I can walk there, grab something, and get back in about 10 minutes if I hurry. But nighttime around my area is not exactly safe. I am not saying it is the worst place in the world, but after dark, especially this late, you do not hang around outside for no reason. There is always some kind of activity going on. People shouting down the street, cars slowing down when they should not, dirt bikes, strangers standing near corners. Sometimes you hear things you pretend you did not hear. Everyone who lives here knows that if you need to run an errand at night, you do it quickly. You keep your head down, get what you need, and go home. That was my plan. It had rained earlier in the evening, so everything outside had that wet, cold smell. The street was shining in places where the lamps hit the asphalt. The air felt thick and damp. The orange streetlights made the whole road look strange, like I was walking through an old photograph that had been left too close to a fire. The fog made it worse. It was not the kind of light mist that sits low near the ground. It was thick, heavy fog, the kind that swallows houses and makes every sound feel far away. The walk to the store had already felt uncomfortable, but nothing really happened on the way there. I kept my hood up, bought my snacks, and started home. I remember thinking that the fog had gotten worse while I was inside. I could barely see down the street. The lamps looked like dull orange circles floating in the gray, and the light around them spread out in soft clouds. It was quiet too. Too quiet. Usually, even late at night, I can hear something. A car passing on another street. Someone's TV through an open window. Dogs barking. Music. People arguing. But that night, everything felt muted. The fog seemed to press down on the sound. My own footsteps sounded too close, like they were happening inside my head instead of under me. I walked looking down most of the time, watching out for deep puddles. I was wearing slides, which was another stupid choice, but I had only planned to be outside for a few minutes. The wet asphalt was slippery, and every few steps, I had to avoid a puddle or a broken piece of road. The orange light from the street lamps spread around my feet, and I could see my shadow shifting as I moved from one lamp to another. That part was normal. On my street, the lamps are all on one side, mostly to the right when I walk home from the store. Because of how they are placed, I usually see 3 shadows around me when I pass between them. One shadow comes from the lamp ahead of me because its light reaches me before I get under it. One comes from the lamp behind me because that light is still hitting my back. And one is right under or near me from the lamp I am closest to at that moment. 3 shadows. Not always perfectly clear, especially in fog, but still 3. I have walked that street so many times that I know the pattern without thinking about it. I know where each shadow should fall. I know when one should grow long and when another should fade. I know how they overlap. I know when the middle one should get darker and when the one behind me should stretch away. For the streetlights in my area, the ones I walk under all the time, there should only be 3 shadows at most. There have always been 3. There should always be 3. But tonight there was a 4th. At first I thought I was imagining it. I noticed it near my right side, opposite the middle shadow. It looked like it had been cast from another light source on my left, opposite the street lamps. That would have made sense if there had been another lamp there. A porch light, a passing motorcycle, a car turning down the road, a flashlight, anything, but there was nothing on my left. Not just nothing bright, nothing at all. The fog was too thick to see much beyond a few feet. All I could see was a little bit of road in front of me, the blurry orange glow of the lamps ahead, and the dark gray shape of the street around me. The houses on the left were hidden. The yards were hidden. Even the sidewalk disappeared into the fog. There was no sign of a porch light, no headlights, no moving glow, no window light, nothing that could have thrown a shadow that direction. Still, the 4th shadow was there. The other shadows moved the way they should. As I walked, they shifted. One stretched ahead of me, another slid behind, and another moved under my feet. Their edges were soft because of the fog, but they behaved like shadows. The 4th one did not. It stayed beside me. It did not stretch and shrink the same way. It did not fade when I passed under a lamp. It did not change direction as I moved forward. It stayed to my right, like it was attached to me but not controlled by the lights around me. It was dark, and its edges looked thicker than the others, like someone had painted it onto the road with black ink. I stopped walking. All the shadows stopped with me. I stood in the middle of the wet street, holding my snacks in one hand, staring at the ground. My brain went straight to the simplest answer. There had to be a light somewhere. There had to be. Shadows do not appear without light. That is not how anything works. I turned my head to the left. Nothing, just fog and darkness. I waited for a second, expecting a motorcycle to come out of the gray, or a car to roll past, or someone to step onto a porch. Nothing happened. The street stayed silent. The fog curled and shifted slowly, but there was no source of light. I looked down again. The fourth shadow was still there. That was when fear started to settle into me. Not a sudden panic yet, more like a slow, cold feeling moving under my skin. I had already been outside longer than I should have been. What should have been a quick 5-minute trip back from the store felt like it was taking much longer. I tried to remember the houses I had passed, but the fog made everything look the same. I could not tell exactly where I was. I could not see the street signs. I could not even see far enough ahead to know if I was close to home. I told myself to keep walking. Maybe it was another light source. Maybe the fog was bending the light somehow. Maybe I was tired. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me after staring at orange lamps through mist for too long. So I walked. The fourth shadow walked with me. It stayed in the wrong place. I started moving faster. My slide slapped against the wet asphalt, and the plastic bag from the store rustled in my hand. I kept looking around, trying to find anything familiar. A fence, a mailbox, a parked car, a driveway, a house with a light on. Anything that would prove I was still where I thought I was. But the fog had swallowed everything. The road in front of me faded into gray after only a few steps. The road behind me disappeared the same way. To my left and right, there was nothing but thick darkness and fog. The lamps were still there, but they seemed farther apart than usual. Their orange light hung in the mist like eyes half closed. Then I looked down again. The fourth shadow was darker. I do not know if that was the exact moment I started to panic, but it was close. Something about that shadow getting darker made my body decide I needed to leave. I stopped trying to explain it. I stopped trying to be logical. I started running. Running in slides on wet asphalt is not smart. I almost slipped almost immediately, catching myself with one hand out while the snack bag hit my leg. I kept going anyway. My breathing got loud. My feet slapped and skidded. Water splashed up around my ankles. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. I tried to look for street signs, but there were none. I tried to look for cars, but no headlights came through the fog. I tried to find any turn in the road, any fence, any yard, any person, any dog barking from a window, anything that would make the street feel real again. There was nothing. It was like the world had narrowed to the road under my feet and the shadows beneath me. The other shadows flickered and stretched as I passed through the weak pools of orange light. The fourth one stayed with me. Sometimes it looked like it was slightly behind my right foot. Sometimes it looked like it was under me. Sometimes I could not see it clearly, but I could feel it there. I know that sounds insane, but I could. I knew it was still there even when the fog and darkness made all the shadows smear together. I ran until my chest hurt. My legs started to burn, and my breath came out in sharp, painful gasps. The cold, damp air made it harder to breathe. My feet ached from gripping my slides, and twice I nearly fell when the soles slid against the wet ground. Eventually, I had to stop. I bent forward with my hands on my knees, trying to catch my breath. The plastic bag hung from my wrist. My lungs felt like they were full of wet cotton. I could hear my own breathing, loud and rough, in the empty street. That was when I noticed the shadow again. The wrong shadow. It was getting darker, not slowly in a way I could ignore. Noticeably quickly, it thickened on the ground beside me, turning blacker than the others. The fog around my feet seemed to glow faintly, like a light was growing behind me or above me. The shadow stretched out, and its edges sharpened. As an artist, I know what that means. When a shadow gets bigger and darker that fast, it usually means the light source is moving. Not just moving, but moving closer. Depending on how the shadow changes, you can understand where the light is coming from. In this case, it looked like something bright was dropping down from above, or moving rapidly through the fog at an angle that made no sense. The shadow grew. It grew so large that I could no longer see the full shape of it past the fog to my right. I could only see the legs, long and dark, stretching away into the gray. For a second, the shadow did not look like mine anymore. It had the idea of my shape, but not the exact form. The legs were too long. The shoulders were wrong. The head seemed to stretch upward, thinning into the mist. I could not move. Then, as fast as it had grown, the shadow shrank. It pulled back toward my feet, smaller and smaller, until it disappeared completely under me. Not faded, not blended into the other shadows. Gone. I looked up. I do not know what I expected to see. A helicopter? A drone? A street lamp hanging broken from a wire? Some kind of searchlight? I looked up because that was where the light had to be coming from. The street lamps around me began to dim, one by one. Their orange glow softened, as if someone had turned a dial down. The fog above me brightened at the same time. At first, it was just a blurry orange stain high in the mist. Then it became stronger, bigger, brighter. There was a huge glowing ball of orange light above the street. It was far up, hidden behind layers of thick fog. But it was so bright that the whole mist around it burned orange. I could not see its edges clearly, but I could feel its presence. The air warmed against my face. Not hot at first, but warm enough to notice. Warm enough to feel wrong on such a damp night. I stood there, staring up at it. My fear changed into something else. I do not know how to describe it except to say I felt pulled toward it. Not physically, not like a rope around my chest, but mentally. Something inside me wanted to go closer, needed to go closer. The road ahead of me seemed to lead directly toward that orange glow. The fog moved in that direction, curling softly like it was inviting me. I knew I should not follow it. I remember thinking that clearly. I remember thinking, if I take another step, I will not find my way back. Then I took another step anyway, and another. I followed the light. The warmth grew stronger as I walked. The street under my feet seemed to slope, though I knew my road was flat. The fog thickened until I could barely see my own hands. The orange glow pulsed above me, and each pulse lit the mist from the inside. My shadows appeared and vanished under my feet, stretching in directions that no longer made sense. The closer I got, the more I understood that it was not really light. It only looked like light from far away. It pulsed like something alive. Its shape was not perfectly round. Every time it pulsed, it changed slightly. It swelled, tightened, shifted, and sagged. It looked soft somehow, like a glowing organ hanging in the sky. It moved gently back and forth, swaying in the fog. Whatever it was, it seemed to be hanging from something far above, something impossibly high that disappeared into the mist. I could not see what held it. I did not want to see. But I kept walking. My mind felt distant. My fear was still there. but it had been pushed to the back of my head. A quiet voice inside me kept saying to stop, to turn around, to run. But it was weak. The glow filled my vision. The warmth touched my face and hands. I felt like if I just got close enough, I would understand something I was not supposed to understand. Then, something grabbed my arm. I screamed. The sound tore out of me so hard that my throat hurt. "Hey kid," someone snapped. "Watch where you're going." I looked down. An old woman was holding my arm. She frowned at me like I was being rude, not like she had just saved me from whatever I had been walking toward. She was short, wearing a heavy coat and carrying a small bag in one hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "You'll trip," she said. I stared at her, too stunned to answer. She glanced past me, shook her head, and muttered, "Kids these days." Then she let go of my arm and kept walking. For a second, I just stood there, breathing hard, trying to understand where I was. The world felt like it snapped back into place all at once. The air was cooler. The strange warmth on my face was gone. The silence had broken. Somewhere nearby, I heard a car door close. A dog barked from inside a house. A porch light buzzed. I looked up. The orange thing was gone. No glowing ball. No lamp in the sky. No fog. No mist at all. I spun around. There were houses on both sides of the street. Clear houses, normal houses, with dark windows and parked cars in driveways. The asphalt under my feet was bone dry. Not damp, not shining. Dry. There were no puddles, no after-rain smell, no wet marks on the road, no fog hiding the street signs or swallowing the lamps. I was standing in the middle of the street, right in front of my house. I do not mean near my house, I mean directly in front of it. My driveway was right there. My front porch was right there. My curtains were visible through the windows. Somehow, I had been about to walk right past my own driveway without even slowing down. I looked down at my slides. They were dry. The bottom of my pants was dry too. The snack bag in my hand was not damp. There were no rain spots on it. Nothing. What the hell? That was the only thing I could think. I stood there in the empty street, looking around like an idiot, trying to find any sign that what I had just experienced had been real. But everything was normal. The fog did not fade away like normal fog would. It did not thin slowly or drift off. It was just gone like someone had erased it. The road was clear. The air was clear. The night was ordinary. But I did not feel ordinary. I ran to my house. I locked the door behind me and stood with my back against it for a long time. My heart was still racing. My hands would not stop shaking. I kept replaying the whole walk in my head. The wet road, the fog, the orange lamps, the fourth shadow, the huge pulsing thing above me, the feeling that I had to follow it. None of it made sense. I wanted to believe it had been in my head. Maybe I had been more tired than I realized. Maybe I had zoned out while walking and imagined the fog. Maybe stress did something weird to my brain. Maybe I had a panic attack. But it did not feel like a dream. It did not feel like a hallucination. It felt real. The fear had been real. The warmth on my face had been real. The pull toward that thing had been real. I needed proof one way or another. So I checked my security camera. We have a camera facing the driveway and part of the street. I opened the footage on my phone as soon as I got inside. My hands were still shaking so badly that I tapped the wrong place twice. I found the clip from around the time I came home. The video showed the street clearly. No fog, no haze, no rain. The asphalt was dry. The houses were visible. The streetlights were normal. There was no orange glow in the sky. Nothing strange hanging above the road. Then I appeared on camera. I was walking slowly down the street, holding the snack bag in my hand. My head was tilted slightly upward, like I was looking at something ahead of me. I did not look scared in the footage. I looked empty, focused, almost sleepwalking, and I was about to walk straight past my driveway. I did not turn toward my house. I did not even glance at it. I kept walking forward, right down the middle of the street, like my home was not there at all. Then the old woman stepped into frame. She reached out and grabbed my shoulder. On the camera, I jumped hard and turned toward her. She said something I could not hear because the audio was bad. Then she kept walking. I stood still for a few seconds, looking around like I had just woken up in the wrong place. Then I turned and walked back toward my house. I watched that part 3 times, then 4, then 5. I kept looking for the fog that had not been there. I kept looking for the light above me. I kept looking for anything in the street that could explain why I had been acting like that. There was nothing. But every few seconds, something else appeared. A 4th shadow beside mine. In the video, the streetlights cast the shadows they were supposed to cast. I could see them clearly because the camera angle showed the driveway and road. My shadow shifted as I moved past the lamps, just like it should. But beside it, to my right, another shadow appeared. It was only there for a moment at a time. It would darken beside me, stay for a second, then fade. Then a few seconds later, it would appear again. Not connected to any visible light. Not matching any movement from me. Not coming from a car, because no cars passed. Not from a porch light, because none turned on. The camera was not pointed at anything that could have caused it. I paused the video on one frame where the 4th shadow was clearest. It was next to mine, but it was not shaped like mine. It was taller, and it looked like it was reaching for me. Story 2. I practically threw myself into the beanbag chair in Mike's room, and the second I landed, I realized how strange it felt to be back there. I remembered the room being bigger. I remembered the beanbag being bigger too. Everything looked smaller now, like the whole house had shrunk while I was gone. Or maybe I had just grown up a little more than I thought. Mike came in behind me with almost no energy, scratching the rough stubble on his chin before dropping into the gaming chair at his desk. "Feels weird being back here again," I said, smiling at him. "Yeah," Mike said with a sigh. I kept smiling anyway, even though he clearly did not have the same excitement I had. I had left this sleepy little town 8 months earlier. It was the town where I grew up, the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, and every street felt like a memory you could not escape. I had moved to St. Louis for college, and honestly, I loved it. It was a completely different world. There were new streets, new faces, new places to eat, new people to meet. Nobody knew who I was unless I told them. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could become somebody else. Mike had stayed behind. He was my best friend. We had been getting into trouble together since elementary school. Back then, if one of us was around, the other was usually close by. We had even made our own little signature when we were kids. MM, Mike and Matt. We used to write it on desks, bathroom walls, behind the grocery store, on stop signs, and once even on the side of the middle school gym before we got caught. There was probably still too much MM graffiti around town. According to Mike, there still was not enough. Being in his room again made me feel like I had stepped backward in time. Part of me expected to hear his mom yell up the stairs asking if we wanted snacks. Part of me expected us to be 15 again, planning some stupid prank or staying up all night playing video games. But things were not like that anymore. I had only turned 19 recently, so it was not like I was old, but everything felt different. Less easy, less carefree. What bothered me most was not even Mike's quiet mood. It was his family. I understood why Mike had been angry with me. When I first told him I was leaving for college, he took it badly. He said I was abandoning him. He said I thought I was better than him now. He said a lot of things that hurt, and I said things back that I wish I could take back. We had barely spoken after that. So when I ran into him earlier that day, and he invited me over, I thought maybe this was a chance to fix things. What I did not understand was why his family was acting so distant. Mike's parents, Paul and Cindy, had known me for years. I practically grew up in their house. They had fed me, yelled at me, driven me places, and once Paul had even told me I was like a second son to him. So when I arrived, I expected at least a little warmth. I expected someone to come out and say hello. But when I stepped into the house, it felt empty. Completely empty. No sounds from downstairs. No TV. No little kids running around. No Cindy calling from the kitchen. Nothing. Mike immediately led me upstairs to his room before I even had time to look around. I never got a chance to see if anyone else was home or if anyone was going to come out and greet me. "Want some pizza?" Mike asked flatly. The question sounded like two strangers trying to make small talk in a waiting room, and honestly, I felt terrible. The pizza was already on its way. We did not take long deciding what to order. Double pepperoni from our favorite place. Just like always, we both liked the exact same thing. Apparently, we still did. "Mike," I said, trying to keep the conversation alive, "I'm glad we ran into each other today. I haven't seen you in a really long time. And, I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" Mike asked, looking at me with a tired kind of curiosity. "You know," I said with a shrug. "All of it. You don't need to be sorry, Matt," he said, without much feeling in his voice. "It happened. I got over it." I nodded, but I did not believe him. I could tell something was still sitting between us, something heavy, but I did not want to push him too hard. If he said he was over it, then I decided to accept it for the moment. "So where are your parents?" I asked, mostly because I needed to say something. "I dunno," he answered immediately, sounding almost half asleep. "Probably in their room." "Oh," I said. The room went quiet again. It was painful. After all the years we had spent together, after all the jokes and secrets and stupid adventures, I could not believe Mike and I suddenly did not know how to talk to each other. "Want some weed?" Mike asked, giving me a slow, tired look. "Jesus, Mike," I said, sitting up in the beanbag. "Are you high right now?" Mike slowly nodded and blinked in a way that looked like his eyelids had forgotten how to work. A huge weight lifted off my chest. Mike was not angry at me, or at least not as angry as I thought. Maybe we had not drifted apart as badly as I feared. Maybe he was just completely stoned. A little while later, I was sprawled across the beanbag chair, taking hits and staring up at the ceiling. Mike was lying on his bed, and for the first time all night, we were actually talking. Not perfectly, not exactly like before, but close enough that I could pretend nothing had changed. We talked about old memories. There was the time we hid inside the Halloween festival maze and scared what felt like half the town. We jumped out at little kids, old ladies, and even one police officer before I ruined everything by throwing up from eating too much candy. Let me tell you, a haunted maze smells a lot worse when somebody pukes inside it. Then there was the time we slipped cat poop into Mrs. Jackson's desk drawer. God, I hated that woman. She was mean, strict, and somehow always knew when we had not done our homework. Unfortunately for us, she also taught math, which meant we saw her almost every day. Mike and I had always been like brothers. I muttered between coughs. This stuff is strong, Mike. Yeah, Mike said lazily. It is. How long have you been doing this? I asked, sitting up a little. Is this all you do now? Smoke weed? Mike propped himself up on one elbow and blinked at me like his brain was moving through mud. I work too, he finally said, sounding offended. I laughed. Mike laughed too. I knew he worked at the convenience store in town stocking shelves. I also knew that, from what I had heard, he barely did anything else. He worked, smoked, hung out, and drifted through life. I did not judge him exactly, but I also could not help noticing the difference between us now. I had classes, exams, dorm life, new friends, and plans that changed every week. Mike still had the same room, the same town, and the same slow days. Jesus, Mike, I said, stretching and yawning. You've got it made. You do whatever the hell you want. What do your parents think about it? Mike's expression darkened. He dropped back onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. They're not exactly thrilled, he admitted after a long pause. But lately they've had other things to worry about. The second he said that, someone knocked on the bedroom door. Shit, Mike, the weed, I whispered. It's fine, Mike said, waving me off as he got up from the bed. They know I do it. I stared at him. That felt wrong. Back when we were still in school, Cindy and Paul used to argue with Mike about weed all the time. They were not exactly strict parents, but they were not the kind to just ignore it either. The idea that they suddenly did not care felt strange. Then again, what are you supposed to do with a 19-year-old? Maybe they had given up. Maybe they were just happy it was only weed and not something worse. Mike shuffled over to the door and cracked it open. Hey, your pizza's here, Paul said from the hallway. His voice sounded nervous. Then he noticed me. Oh, Matt, didn't know you were here. Been a while. Hey, Paul, I said, smiling. Paul barely acknowledged me. That was strange. When we graduated high school, Paul was the one who bought us alcohol to celebrate. Around that time, he had told me to stop calling him Mr. Thompson and just call him Paul because I was a man now. He was the kind of dad who tried to act cool, sometimes too cool, but he had always been friendly to me. Tonight, he looked different, agitated, distracted, like he wanted to be somewhere else, or like he wanted me to be somewhere else. Did you really have to do this tonight? Paul muttered to Mike, probably thinking I could not hear him. Come on, Dad, Mike said, taking the pizza from him. Mike, Paul hissed quietly. Please, just stay in your room tonight, okay? Mike did not answer. He only stared into his father's eyes. Then he slowly closed the door. I sat there, suddenly uncomfortable again. Listen, Mike, I said if it's a bad time, I can come back another day. No, Mike replied coldly. Stay. I did not like how he said it. Paul had always welcomed me into that house. Besides Mike, he and Cindy had twin girls too, Mike's little sisters. I thought they had turned 4 earlier that year. They were usually loud, sticky, and everywhere. But tonight I had not heard them once. Not a laugh, not a cry, not a little footstep running down the hall. I felt uncomfortable, not because of the weed, not even because Paul clearly did not seem happy to see me. I felt uncomfortable because Mike did not explain any of it. He sat back down at his desk, opened the pizza box, and started eating like everything was normal. "Mike, are you sure you want me to stay?" I asked again. "I've got some stuff to do with my dad tomorrow anyway. Maybe I should just head home." "No." Mike snapped. Then he immediately softened his voice. "No, don't. We haven't seen each other in forever. Let's hang out a little longer." He looked like someone trying to delay bad news. The last time I had seen him act like that was when he had to tell his parents he had failed 3 classes. "You sure everything's okay?" I asked. "How are your sisters doing?" "They're fine," Mike said quickly. "They're doing fine. But come on, tell me something about you. Any girls?" I smiled a little. I could tell he did not want to talk about whatever was happening in the house, so I let him change the subject. I figured maybe it was all connected to us not speaking for almost a year. Maybe he still felt hurt. Maybe his family was dealing with something private. Maybe I was reading too much into everything. "There are girls," I admitted awkwardly. "And parties. But as a freshman, nobody really invites you anywhere yet." "That's not a problem," Mike said, suddenly sounding more like himself. "Give it time. You'll get invited everywhere." Then he grinned. "Just make sure you invite me too." "You got it, man," I said, grinning back. "Now pass me that pizza before I starve to death." What I had not thought about was gluten. My newest enemy. Right before leaving for college, I had found out that my stomach probably could not handle it anymore. Pizza, as it turned out, was one of the worst possible choices. But I had not seen Mike in months, and double pepperoni had been our thing for years. I wanted to feel normal. I wanted to eat the pizza and laugh and not think about the weird look on Paul's face. At first it was fine. Then my stomach started to churn. The warm haze from the weed and the comfort of being full disappeared fast, replaced by a deep, uncomfortable cramping sensation. "You good?" Mike asked around a mouthful of pizza crust. Yeah, I groaned. My stomach made a loud, ugly sound. "Mike, man, I gotta use the bathroom." Mike did not answer right away. I noticed him looking nervously from me to the pizza box, then toward the door. Almost like he did not want me leaving the room, or like he had somehow forgotten where the bathroom was. "Mike," I said more seriously, "I really have to go." I pushed myself out of the beanbag chair. Okay, Mike muttered through a full mouth. "Just hurry back. My dad's got something important going on." I did not feel like arguing about how weird that sounded. What was I supposed to do? If you are seconds away from embarrassing yourself forever, you are going to the bathroom. Mike just kept chewing his last slice while staring blankly at the floor. The weed had definitely done something to his brain. I waddled out of the room like a penguin. The house was quiet and dim. I knew it was already around 10 at night, but still, the silence felt wrong. I slipped out of Mike's room as quietly as I could. I did not want to get either of us in trouble after Paul had specifically told us to stay put. I tried to tell myself there was a normal reason. Maybe Mike's little sisters were asleep. Maybe Paul was on a late work call. He did business with clients in Europe, and because of the time difference, he often had meetings at night. Still, I did not care if he was talking to the president. I needed the bathroom. Holding my stomach and clenching my teeth, I moved carefully down the hallway. I knew exactly where the upstairs bathroom was. I had been in that house 1,000 times before. But no matter how quietly you try to move, panic and stomach pain make you faster than you want to be. As I passed Paul's office, I noticed the door was open. I expected him to step out and scold me like I was still a kid sneaking around after bedtime, or at least glare at me as I hurried past. But the office was completely dark. I only stopped for a second. God, I wish I had not stopped. I knew there was a massive leather chair in that office. I had sat in it plenty of times when I was younger, spinning around while Mike searched through his dad's desk drawers for things we were not supposed to touch. Someone was sitting in that chair now. I only saw the silhouette for a moment in the darkness, but it was enough to know it was not Paul. The figure was too tall, too thin. Actually, it was taller than anyone I had ever seen in my life, and its eyes seemed to catch the little bit of light coming from the hallway. For one second, I thought maybe it was wearing glasses. Maybe some business client was sitting in the dark like a weirdo. Maybe I had walked past in the middle of some strange private meeting. Or maybe it was not glasses. Maybe its eyes were reflecting the darkness the way a cat's eyes do at night. The figure did not move. Neither did I. Then my stomach twisted hard enough to make the decision for me. I kept walking toward the bathroom. I ended up spending longer in there than I meant to. Part of that was because my stomach was trying to kill me. The other part was because I could not stop thinking about the tall figure sitting in Paul's office. Who the hell was that? A coworker? A client? Was that why Paul did not want us leaving Mike's room? But why would someone sit in the dark? Why had Paul looked so scared? Why had Mike acted like I was not supposed to leave? By the time I finished, at least 20 minutes had passed. I hoped nobody had noticed me wandering around, but there was nothing I could do about it. I washed my hands, splashed water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red from the weed, but underneath that, I looked nervous. I opened the bathroom door carefully, trying not to make a sound. I stepped into the hallway and slowly pulled the door shut behind me. The moment the latch clicked, Paul's office door opened. Paul stepped out. He rubbed one hand through his short hair and paced a few steps like a man who had just received terrible news. His face looked pale and strained. Whatever was happening in that office, it had shaken him. Then he saw me. The color drained from his face completely. "What are you doing out here?" he whispered. There was real fear in his voice. I stammered. "I had to use the bathroom," she said immediately, pressing a finger to his lips. Quieter. "Shh, come here." I had no idea what to make of him. I had seen Paul stressed before. I had seen him angry. I had even seen him so exhausted that Mike and I practically destroyed the living room while playing around and he slept through it. But this was different. It was like every emotion had hit him at once and left only fear behind. "Sorry," I said quietly as I walked over. "I really had to go." Okay, just keep it down," Paul whispered. "Go back to Mike's room. Right now." He placed a hand on my shoulder and gently guided me down the hallway like a security guard escorting a lost kid away from somewhere restricted. As we passed the office, I noticed the door was closed now. Paul seemed desperate to get me away from it. He moved me along like I was an escaped pet that needed to be returned to its cage before someone noticed. A few seconds later, I was standing outside Mike's bedroom door. Paul immediately turned and hurried back toward the office. I should have gone inside. I did not. For some reason, I felt like I needed to know what he was rushing back to. I stayed where I was, my hand hovering near Mike's doorknob, and listened. The office door clicked. I leaned slightly, trying to see down the hall, but Paul stepped directly into the doorway, blocking my view. "No, of course not," Paul said. His voice was trembling. "No one. It was just me. I could not see anyone else." I could not hear anyone else either, but Paul was clearly talking to someone, and he sounded terrified. Suddenly, Mike's bedroom door flew open. My old friend grabbed my wrist so hard it hurt and yanked me inside. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded the second the door shut behind me. "I was in the bathroom. Mike, Jesus, relax." I tried to pull away, but he grabbed my shoulders. "Did you see him?" Mike asked, leaning in so close that I could smell the pizza and weed on his breath. "Did you see my brother?" "What?" I stared at him. I had no idea what he was talking about. I had known Mike and his family since we were kids. Our parents had been friends for years. Nobody had ever mentioned a brother. Mike did not have a brother out there. Mike hissed, trying to whisper but almost shouting. "Is he out there? Did he see you? Did you see him? Tell me." "No," I said, completely confused. "I don't know. What the hell are you talking about?" "Mike, you don't have a brother. What is all this?" Mike let go of me. Then he started pacing back and forth, rubbing his face with both hands. He walked circles around the room like a man on the edge of a breakdown. He looked terrified. Not annoyed, not high. Terrified, I started to feel scared of him. What the hell was wrong with everyone in that house? Slowly, I took a step backward toward the beanbag chair. I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I just stood there awkwardly, feeling like I had walked into a family secret I was never meant to see. Then someone knocked. At least, I think it was a knock. It did not sound like the knock Paul had used earlier. 3 heavy thuds shook Mike's bedroom door. Slow, deliberate, each one separated by a long pause. It sounded like a signal. Mike froze. He was standing only a few feet from the door. I watched his eyes widen. I watched him swallow. His breathing became faster. His hands trembled. Pure panic spread across his face. And even though I had no idea who could possibly be on the other side of that door, I felt afraid too. Mike did not move. He stood in front of the door like a statue. His fingers twitched nervously, but the rest of him stayed perfectly still. Whoever was on the other side seemed happy to wait. I could not hear footsteps. I could not hear anyone breathing. Nobody called out for Mike to open the door. Was it really his brother out there? His brother who did not exist? Then who the hell was it? The knocking came again. This time it was louder, more deliberate, more rhythmic. Mike squeezed his eyes shut, his face twisted like he was about to cry. "Shit," he whispered, his voice cracking. I wanted to say something, anything, but I could not make myself speak. I just stood there watching him fall apart. "Please stay quiet," Mike said, turning to me with pure terror in his eyes. "Don't move." Slowly, carefully, he reached for the doorknob. For a moment, he only held it, like he was thinking about something, like he was about to do something he had promised not to do. Then he turned it. The door opened just a crack. My heart skipped. I had no idea what I expected to see. A person, Paul, some stranger from the office. something tall and thin with glowing eyes. I did not know. Paul's fear, Mike's fear. By then, it had become mine too, even if I still did not understand what I was afraid of. Mike stayed in the doorway, looking through the narrow opening. But he was not looking straight ahead. He was looking upward, far upward. So high that for a second I thought he was staring at the ceiling in the hallway. "No," Mike said suddenly. "Not now." I had not heard anyone speak. Not a single word. It was like Mike was answering the darkness itself. "Please," he said again to the empty hallway. "Nobody." I said, "Not now." I stood frozen. I could not see whether anyone was standing outside the door because Mike was blocking my view, but watching him stare upward and have a conversation with someone I could not hear was terrifying. "No," Mike said, lowering his head with shame in his voice. "I know, yeah, but—" Silence. His words died in his throat. He looked like a little kid being scolded by a parent. Head down, body trembling, eyes fixed on the floor. "I'm sorry," he finally whispered after swallowing hard. "A friend." Another long pause followed. By then, I had backed myself into the farthest corner of the room. The entire situation was insane, but I did not dare make a sound. "Okay," Mike finally said, and relief crept into his voice. "Soon, I promise." He nodded, as if agreeing to something. Then, slowly, very slowly, he closed the door. The lock clicked. Mike immediately let out a huge breath. His face had gone completely pale, like he had just survived a car crash. "What the fuck was that?" I snapped, equal parts terrified and angry. Mike swallowed hard. Then he stepped closer to me. I had nowhere left to back away. "My brother," he said in a trembling voice. "Mike, are you serious?" I snapped. "You don't have a brother. What the hell are you talking about? What the fuck is going on here?" "Shh," Mike said, lunging toward me. "Not so loud. He'll hear you." As soon as he reached me, he tried to cover my mouth with his hand. I shoved him away. "Get off me," I snapped, pushing him hard. Mike stumbled backward and crashed onto the floor. He glared up at me. "Mike, what the hell is all this?" I demanded. "Who were you talking to?" "I told you," Mike said, sitting heavily on the edge of his bed. "My brother. He's been living with us for a while." "No," I said, shaking my head immediately. "No, I know you. I know your family. You don't have a brother, but we do." Mike muttered quietly. "We just didn't know it. None of us did." He lowered his eyes. "But he was always here." His voice dropped even further. "He was always here." I did not know what to say. I just stared at him. What was he talking about? Who was this brother supposed to be? Had the whole family lost their minds? "Mike," I finally said, trying to keep my voice low. "What is wrong with you people? Who is your brother?" "He lives here," Mike whispered. "He's here with us all the time." I swallowed. Whatever Mike meant, whoever or whatever he was talking about, one thing was clear. He was terrified of it, just like Paul. Then a voice exploded from somewhere downstairs. "That's not what you said." I nearly jumped out of my skin. Mike froze. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he began trembling like a scared dog. "That's not the deal we made." The voice sounded familiar. At first, I could not place it because it was so full of fear and rage. Then I realized it was Paul. He was yelling at someone. Or something. "No." Paul shouted again, his voice growing more desperate with every word. I said no. Mike slowly slid off the edge of the bed and onto the floor. He curled into himself, shaking violently like a person having a breakdown. "Not them," Paul screamed. "Please enough. You said it wouldn't be like this." The worst part was that nobody answered him. At least, nobody I could hear. It sounded like he was arguing with empty air. "Please," Paul practically shrieked. "Stop! Wait! You can't do this!" Mike pulled himself into a fetal position, his hands clamped over his ears. Then he began repeating the same words over and over. "No, no, no, it's happening again. No, no, no." Every instinct in my body screamed one thing: run. So I did. I jumped onto Mike's bed. One leap took me to the wall, another took me to the window. I fumbled with the latch, and when it popped open, I threw myself through without thinking. I did not care that we were on the second floor. I did not care how far the drop was. I only wanted to get away from that house, away from whatever was inside it, away from my best friend. I hit the ground hard enough to knock the air from my lungs. Pain shot through my legs and side, but I forced myself up and ran. I ran across the yard, down the street, and through the dark town I used to know so well. Every shadow looked too tall. Every tree looked like it was leaning toward me. I did not stop until I reached home. I am not proud of it. I left Mike behind. But what else was I supposed to do? The whole family had either lost their minds, or there really was something in that house. Something that terrified them so badly they treated it like family. Something Paul begged. Something Mike called his brother. Something that knocked on the door and made everyone inside obey. Was it cowardly to run? Maybe, but I was terrified. The second I got home, I ran straight to my room, threw myself onto my bed, and pulled the blankets over my head like a frightened child. I was genuinely scared for my life. The worst part was that I did not even know what I was afraid of. I did not know what was inside Mike's house. But the panic was real, and sprinting through the dark streets had only made it worse. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. The next thing I knew, it was morning. I crawled out of bed, drenched in sweat. For one brief moment, everything felt like a nightmare, a bad high, a strange dream caused by weed, pizza, and stress. But I knew it had happened. I remembered Mike's face. I remembered Paul screaming into the darkness. I remembered the tall silhouette sitting in the office chair, its pale eyes catching the light. I spent the entire day at home. My parents asked what was wrong several times. I told them I felt sick. I did not want to explain. I did not even know how to explain. What was I supposed to say? That Mike had a brother nobody remembered? That something tall was living in his house? That Paul had made some kind of deal with it? That my best friend was terrified and I had jumped out a window to save myself? I kept quiet. Part of me felt like if I did not talk about it, it could not hurt me. But as the hours passed, guilt started eating at me. I had left Mike behind. No matter how scared I was, Mike had been my best friend for most of my life. We had been brothers in every way that mattered. If something was happening to him, I could not just pretend it was not my problem. Still, there was no way I was going back inside that house alone. So I came up with the next best thing. I walked back to Mike's street before sunset. I did not go too close. I stood at a distance, watching the house like some burglar planning a break-in. It looked different in daylight. Older, more tired. The windows looked darker than they should have. The lawn was overgrown, and the paint on the front porch looked cracked and gray. I called the police. I do not know what I expected them to find. Maybe Paul and Cindy acting strange. Maybe Mike needing help. Maybe nothing. Maybe I wanted someone else to see the house and tell me I was not crazy. The dispatcher was polite. She said she would send a patrol car. So I waited. And waited. Eventually, a cruiser pulled up in front of the house. I was almost relieved when I saw it. 2 officers sat inside. One was young with a scruffy beard. The other wore sunglasses, even though the light was already fading. I jogged over as they stopped near the curb. "Afternoon, kid," the bearded officer said through the open window. "You the one who called us?" "Yes, sir," I said quickly. "Can you please check on the family inside? Something really weird is going on in there." There was yelling, and I think they might be in trouble. The 2 officers exchanged a look. The one in the driver's seat only shrugged. The bearded officer looked back at me. "Son," he said slowly, "this house?" "Yes," I said, nodding. "My friend lives here with his family. Something is seriously wrong." "He lives here?" the officer asked. His expression changed. "Son, nobody's lived here for decades." I stared at him. "What? You're not messing with us, are you?" "No," I said immediately. "Look, I pulled out my phone. I remembered the picture. Last year. Prom night, Mike and I had taken it right in front of this house before we left. One last picture together before everything changed. I opened my photos and searched for it. It was not there. I searched again. Then again. Not that picture. Not any picture. My hands started shaking. Mike was not there. There was not a single photo of him on my phone. Not one. No prom picture. No graduation picture. No dumb selfies. No photos from school trips. No old pictures from Halloween. Nothing. It was as if someone had gone through my phone and removed every trace of him. Or as if he had never existed at all. Cold sweat ran down my back. The officers were watching me now with growing suspicion and concern. "Kid?" the bearded one said. I did not answer. Slowly, I looked up at the house where Mike supposedly lived. The upstairs window was dark. But someone was standing there. A tall black silhouette. Too tall. Too thin. Waiting. Watching me. Its strange pale eyes glinted from the darkness behind the glass, and even from across the yard, even with the police beside me, I knew it was smiling. Story 3. I was not expecting him. To be honest, I was not even home when he first showed up. That Saturday, my girlfriend had dragged me to one of those terrible live-action Disney remakes. I had not wanted to go, but she had been excited about it all week, and we had planned to get dinner afterward, so I went along. About halfway through the movie when I was already wishing I could leave, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from my video doorbell. I whispered something to my girlfriend about getting popcorn and slipped out of the theater into the hallway. Honestly, anything was better than sitting through 2 more hours of expensive, lifeless movie nonsense. I opened the camera feed. For a second, I thought I was looking at an old recording. My twin brother Lance was standing outside my front door. That made no sense. Lance was supposed to be in Alaska. He was dressed completely in white. He had on a freshly pressed linen shirt and matching white pants. There was no logo, no design, not even a wrinkle in the clothes. He was barefoot. His hair was combed back neatly, and he looked like he had stepped out of some strange religious group or a hospital ward instead of a plane from Alaska. Then I noticed what he was doing. He was pounding on my front door with both fists, not knocking. Pounding, his fists moved so fast, They almost blurred on the grainy camera feed. Each hit made his shoulders shake. Even through the poor quality of the video, I could see the panic in his face. His eyes kept darting up and down the hallway, left and right, like he expected someone to appear around the corner at any second, like he was running from something. I just stared at my phone. Then his eyes found the doorbell camera. Everything changed. His fists stopped in the middle of another swing. The panic vanished from his face so suddenly that it did not fade away like a normal expression. It simply disappeared. 1 second, my brother looked terrified. The next, he looked calm. His breathing slowed. His shoulders relaxed. A small, familiar smile spread across his face. He stepped closer to the camera and gave a little wave. "Hey, Jason," he said warmly. "Mind letting me in? I have so much to tell you." I stared at the screen for another second before pressing the microphone button. "Lance? I'm not home. What are you doing here?" He kept smiling directly into the lens. "I have a lot to tell you," he said. "A lot. Come home. Quick." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It was not just the words. It was the change. The way he had gone from desperate and terrified to smiling like nothing was wrong. It felt rehearsed. It felt like someone had reminded him what face to wear. I went back into the theater, muttered something to my girlfriend about a family emergency, apologized, and left before the movie ended. She looked annoyed at first, then concerned when she saw my face. I told her I would call her later and hurried out. The whole drive home, I kept replaying the footage in my head. Lance pounding on the door, the look of pure fear in his eyes, the way his face went blank then happy as soon as he noticed the camera. 20 minutes later, I pulled into my driveway. Lance had not moved. He was still standing at my front door, exactly where I had left him, with his hands folded neatly in front of him. He looked calm now, almost patient. The moment he saw my car, that thin smile returned to his face. "Jason," he called, waving like we had only been apart for a few days. But I had not seen him in 2 years. As I got out of the car and crossed the yard, I noticed how different he looked. People always said Lance and I were mirror images of each other because we were twins, but I never fully agreed. We had the same general face, sure, but there were always differences. I had always thought I looked more like our mother, and he looked more like our father. Now, for the first time, the differences were impossible to ignore. He was paler than I remembered. His posture was slightly hunched, like his body was tired or sore. His medium brown hair was combed straight back so tightly that it looked slick with oil. But the biggest thing was his eyes. They were wide open, too wide. His pupils were fully dilated, swallowing most of the green in his irises. And the green that remained looked different somehow. Flat, dull, not like his eyes used to look. "Lance," I said. I walked up and hugged him. For one long second, he did not hug me back. Then his arms closed around me. He felt rigid, almost wooden, like he had to remember how a hug worked before doing it. "What are you wearing?" I asked, trying to laugh it off. He did not laugh. "Let's go inside," he said. "We have a lot to talk about." We spent the next couple of hours at my kitchen table. At first, things felt surprisingly normal. We talked about our parents, old stories from when we were kids, work, money, and all the boring adult stuff people talk about when they have not seen each other in a long time. We opened a couple of beers, He laughed at some of my jokes. I laughed at some of his. For a little while, I almost forgot how strange his arrival had been. I almost forgot he was not supposed to be here. He had been in Alaska on some kind of excavation project. Lance had always been smart, and he had always loved history, geology, and old buried things. He had been part of research trips before, but never one that kept him gone this long. He had sent a few messages early on, then fewer and fewer. For months I had barely heard from him. I thought maybe the work had taken over his life. That would have been very Lance. But every time I asked about Alaska, his expression changed. Lance used to love talking about his work. He could turn any conversation into a lecture about whatever project he was obsessed with. If he was studying bones, you were going to hear about bones. If he was working near some old settlement, you were going to hear every theory about who lived there and why they disappeared. That was the Lance I remembered. He was an overachiever, a nerd, and a guy who could not shut up once he got excited. This Lance did not want to talk about it at all. Whenever I brought up the expedition, he would glance toward the window, take a slow sip of beer, and gently move the conversation somewhere else. The first time I thought I had just touched on something stressful. The second time I noticed. The third time, I stopped asking. He had never been away for so long before, so I told myself he was adjusting. Maybe something bad had happened on the trip. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he needed time before he could talk about it. It was strange, but he was my brother, and I was happy to see him alive and sitting across from me. During a quiet moment, he looked down at the table and asked, "Do you mind if I stay here for a while?" There was something desperate in his eyes. "Of course," I said. "You can take my room. I'll sleep on the couch." He smiled. That smile almost looked real, almost. But something underneath it did not sit right with me. I kept wondering what had made him come all the way home with no warning. Had something happened on the expedition? Had he gotten fired? Had he run away from someone? Then a darker thought crossed my mind. Drugs. I dismissed it almost immediately. Lance had never touched drugs. He barely drank. He had always been too focused, too careful, too in control. But then again, I had never expected to find him barefoot on my porch, pounding on my door like his life depended on it. The conversation eventually faded. We sat in silence for a minute, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft clink of his beer bottle as he turned it in his hand. Then, without warning, Lance pushed back his chair and stood. The sudden movement made me jump. He did not say anything. He walked down the hallway, went into my bedroom, and shut the door behind him. A second later, I heard the lock click. I frowned. Growing up, Lance and I never locked doors from each other. We barely knocked. We had shared rooms, secrets, clothes, food, and almost every thought when we were kids. Hearing him lock that door felt wrong. Then something else hit me. He had not brought anything with him. No backpack, no suitcase, no duffel bag, not even a jacket. I had not seen a phone, a wallet, or keys. Nothing. If he had really come straight from Alaska, where was the rest of his life? By the time I brushed my teeth and settled onto the couch, it was close to midnight. I heard Lance moving around in my bedroom for a while. The floor creaked once or twice. A drawer opened, then closed. Something bumped softly against the wall. Then, everything went quiet. I must have fallen asleep almost right away. I woke up to a scream. It was so raw and full of panic that I was on my feet before I even understood where I was. Lance. I ran down the hallway and grabbed the bedroom doorknob. Locked. He kept screaming. I slammed my shoulder into the door. Once, twice, on the third hit, the cheap plywood cracked and the door burst open. Lance was sitting upright in the bed, drenched in sweat. His breathing came in short, uneven gasps. His eyes were fixed on the corner of the room, wide and terrified. Like someone was standing there. His lips were moving. "Don't make me do it," he whispered. His voice was barely there. No, please, I followed his stare. The corner was empty. "Lance?" He flinched at the sound of my voice. Slowly, he turned toward me. For a second, the fear stayed on his face. It was the same fear I had seen through the doorbell camera. Deep, helpless fear. Then it disappeared again. He blinked once, smiled apologetically, and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sorry," he said with a short, embarrassed laugh. "Guess I'm still adjusting to the time change." I looked back at the empty corner. "Lance, are you good? Seriously?" He smiled again. Completely, I did not believe him. Not even close. But what was I supposed to do at midnight? Drag him to an emergency room because he had a nightmare? Tell a doctor my brother was acting weird and staring at empty corners? I told myself I would find him help in the morning. I went back to the couch and lay awake for a long time before drifting into uneasy sleep. I wish I could say that was the last strange thing Lance did. It was not. A couple of mornings later, we were eating breakfast before I had to leave for work. I was rushing, already late, trying to shovel oatmeal into my mouth while checking the time. Lance sat across from me, slowly poking at scrambled eggs on his plate. I had started to notice that eggs were almost all he ate. Eggs in the morning. Eggs at night. Sometimes nothing else. No toast, no fruit, no cereal, no snacks. Just eggs. He would push them around with his fork for a while, and then eat them in small, careful bites. Out of nowhere, he looked up and asked, "Do you know why we don't remember being born, Jason?" I glanced at the clock. "No idea," I said. He nodded slowly, as if that was the only answer I could have given. "We remember," he said. I stopped chewing. He poked at the eggs again. "We just aren't allowed to." I frowned. "What?" He looked at me with a strange kind of pity, like he knew something terrible and felt sorry that I did not know it too. "We were one. Once," he said. "One soul." He tapped a finger lightly against his temple. "It's all still in there." "What are you talking about?" His gaze drifted past me, settling on the kitchen window. "They taught us the wrong things," he whispered. Before I was opened, "I can show you." A cold feeling moved through me. "The hell are you talking about, Lance?" He did not answer. A few seconds later, he blinked, looked back at me, and smiled like we had been talking about something completely normal. "So," he said, "are you seeing Emily tonight?" I stared at him. Then I finished my coffee, wished him a good day, and left without looking back. As I walked to my car, I felt his eyes tracking me through the window. It made me move faster. Over the next few days, it got to the point where I dreaded going home. I know how that sounds. He was my twin brother. He had disappeared from my life for 2 years and come back looking like he needed help. I should have wanted to be there for him, and part of me did. But another part of me was afraid of him. I started making excuses to stay at Emily's place as much as possible. I told myself I was giving Lance space. I told Emily my brother was going through something and I did not want to crowd him. But the truth was simpler. I did not want to be alone with him. One night, while I was at Emily's apartment, My phone rang. The caller ID showed my home landline. I did not even know the thing still worked. I answered carefully. "Hello? You coming home?" Lance asked immediately. His voice sounded close to the receiver. Too close. "Nah, man," I said, trying to sound casual. "I think I'm going to crash at Emily's tonight. More free space for you, right?" There was silence on the other end. It lasted long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, well, his voice carried a strange disappointment. "It's almost time." "Time for what?" "I have to tell you a secret." That confused me more than some of the other things. Lance and I had never really had secrets. It is hard to explain to people who are not twins, but growing up, we almost shared a brain. We could tell when the other was lying. We knew each other's moods before a word was spoken. Secrets did not last long between us. "Lance," I said slowly, "are you okay?" He hung up. I stared at my phone for a while before lowering it. Emily was talking about something on the TV, but I was not listening. I could not shake the feeling that whatever Lance meant by almost time, it had something to do with me. The next day after work, I stood outside my front door for a while before going in. I do not know why. I just needed a second to prepare myself. Then I opened the door. Lance was sitting at the kitchen table with the landline phone in his hand. The cord was wrapped tightly around his wrist like a bandage, cutting into his skin and leaving a purple ring. It looked like he had been sitting there for hours. His eyes lifted to mine. "Jason," he said brightly, "I have so much to tell you." As I stepped inside, I noticed he was sweating heavily. My apartment was cold, but thick drops ran down his face and soaked into the collar of his white shirt. That was when I realized he had put on the same white clothes he had arrived in. The white linen shirt, the white pants, still no shoes. I sat down across from him slowly. "What's going on?" "We have to go," he said immediately. "Pack your things. Go where?" "Alaska." His eyes widened slightly, though they already looked too wide. His pupils were huge and black. "I have so much I need to tell you," he said. "Secrets?" That was when I decided I had had enough. No more pretending this was just stress. No more waiting for him to explain. No more telling myself my brother was simply tired or traumatized. Lance needed help. Real help. Looking back, I still do not know if I regret what I did next. Part of me thinks I made the right choice. Part of me thinks it was the thing that made him leave. I took out my phone and started dialing Emily. "No," I said, trying to put as much authority into my voice as I could. "We're not going to Alaska. We're seeing a doctor." Lance stared at me. His smile fell away. For a moment, his face was empty. Not sad, not angry, just empty, like someone had turned off all the lights inside him. Then he stood up as the call connected. "Goodbye, Jason," he said. He said it cheerfully, almost like he was leaving for work. Then he turned, walked out of the kitchen, opened the apartment door, and disappeared into the stairwell. I ran after him while still talking to Emily on the phone, trying to explain what was happening, but by the time I reached the hallway, he was gone. I took the stairs 2 at a time. I pushed through the building door and ran into the parking lot. Nothing, no movement. No barefoot man in white, no sign of him at all. Just asphalt, parked cars, and headlights passing on the street. That was the last time I saw my brother in person. I called the police, but there is only so much they can do when a grown adult walks away on his own. Still, I filed a missing person report. I told them everything I could without sounding completely insane. I told them about his strange behavior, the possibility of drugs, the possible mental breakdown, the expedition in Alaska, the fact that he had appeared at my apartment with no luggage, no shoes, and no clear explanation. They listened, but I could tell they did not understand the urgency. To them, Lance was an adult man who had left an apartment after an argument. They said they would contact the expedition team and follow up. Then, all I could do was wait. A month later, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, a detective was standing there. I recognized him from the missing person report. His face was serious in a way that made my stomach drop before he said anything. I let him in, and we sat at my kitchen table. He kept fidgeting with his hands. He looked like the words did not fit properly in his mouth. "There's no easy way to say this," he said, "so I'm just going to say it." He took a breath. "Your brother's plane crashed 4 months ago in the Alaskan wilderness, before you filed your report." I stared at him. The words did not make sense. "What?" "It was a supply run to Anchorage," he continued. "Remote area, difficult conditions. We're only just now getting full confirmation." I shook my head. "No, that's not possible. He was here. He stayed with me." The detective's expression tightened. "That's why I'm here," he said quietly. "There were no survivors." My heart seemed to fall into my stomach. "They recovered your brother's body from the wreck." I could not speak. In the weeks that followed, they confirmed it with dental records. There was no mistake. The body was Lance. My brother had died in Alaska months before he appeared on my porch. People say you have to see something to believe it, but that is not true. I saw his body in the morgue. I saw his cold, unmistakable face. I saw the proof with my own eyes, and I still do not believe what they want me to believe, because I also saw him standing at my door. I hugged him. I sat across from him at my kitchen table. I heard him scream in my bedroom. I watched him eat eggs. I heard him talk about birth, souls, secrets, and being opened. I saw him walk out of my apartment. There was a small funeral. I remember pieces of it, but not enough. Or maybe I do remember it, and I just do not trust my memory anymore. Everyone kept telling me how sorry they were. My parents looked broken. Emily held my hand the whole time. People spoke softly around me, like I was made of glass. But all I could think about was the thing that had come home. Because it was not Lance. It looked like him. It sounded like him. It knew enough to laugh at old memories and say my name with my brother's voice. But every time I think back, I remember the wrongness. The stiff hug, the empty smile, the wide eyes, the white clothes, the bare feet, the way panic vanished from his face when he realized the camera was watching. And most of all, I remember what he said. Before, I was opened. Now, every time I go to bed, I hear his voice. Not clearly. It comes like a whisper from another room, or from behind a wall. Sometimes I think he is saying my name. Sometimes I think he is telling me secrets. Sometimes I think he is asking me to follow him. I listen, but I cannot understand. I need answers. I know how this sounds. I know people will say grief does strange things to the mind. They will say I imagined him because I missed him. They will say trauma filled in the blanks. They will say the man in my apartment was someone else, or that I am remembering things wrong. But I know what I saw. I know who stood outside my front door. I know who looked into that camera and smiled. And I know the body in that Alaskan wreck was already dead long before my brother came home. I think I am going to Alaska. I need to know what happened on that expedition. I need to know what was found out there. I need to know what my brother meant when he said he was opened. Most of all, I need to know who was in my apartment, because whatever came home that night was not Lance. Story 4. Ben fell to the floor like his bones had suddenly forgotten how to hold him up. His eyes were cloudy and unfocused, rolling slightly as blood slowly spread beneath the back of his head. No one screamed at first. That was the worst part. For one horrible second, everyone in the classroom just sat there, frozen in their desks, staring at him like none of us understood what had happened. Like if we waited long enough, Ben might sit up, laugh nervously, and tell us he was okay. But he did not move. Then, our teacher turned her head toward me. "Dylan," she said softly, "the answer to number 9, please." Her voice was calm. Too calm. It sounded almost normal, and somehow that made everything worse. Her smile made my skin crawl. It was too wide, stretched across her face like it did not belong there. Her lips looked dry and cracked, and the corners of her mouth were pulled so far back that I could see the dark space between her teeth. My fingers curled around the bracelet on my wrist without me even thinking about it. My mom had given me that bracelet after my dad died. She told me to wear it whenever I felt alone. She said it would remind me that she was always with me. Right then, it was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. How long would it take before someone noticed? How long before another teacher came in? How long before someone heard the screams from our classroom and called for help? Dylan? The way she said my name made my stomach twist. The answer. I needed the answer. "Think, Dylan, if you don't know, I know it." I blurted out. "Just give me a minute." My voice cracked on the last word. I stared down at my notebook, but I could not read anything. The numbers blurred together. My hand was shaking so badly that the page seemed to move. Where was question 9? Where had I written it? Why could I not find it? She was coming closer. I could hear her shoes against the floor. Slow, careful, almost playful. Her fingers appeared on the edge of my desk first. They were long and pale, the nails dirty and uneven. Then they slid over my notebook, pressing down on the paper. "Let me help you," she said. Her eyes were not really looking at me. They seemed to stare past me, through me, while that smile stretched wider and wider across her face. Her jaw began to open, slowly, too slowly. You know I don't like repeating myself. Her mouth barely moved when she spoke. Her lower jaw just kept sinking lower, opening wider than any human jaw should have been able to open. With every inch, more cracks split across her chapped lips. The sound was soft, like dry paper tearing. "What is the answer to number 9, Dylan?" I could feel the air leaving her throat. It was cold. Hollow, dead. "Shut up," I whispered. The second the words left my mouth, I hated myself for saying them. Why did I say that? Her smile twitched. I had to move. I had to get away before she grabbed me. But how? She was standing right in front of me. If I ran, she would catch me. Izzy had tried running earlier. We all saw what happened to Izzy. But I was faster than Izzy, right? I did not have time to decide. I shoved my desk into her as hard as I could. The metal legs screeched against the floor as the desk slammed into her body. For half a second, I thought it worked. The gap between us opened, just enough for me to run. Then her hand shot forward and grabbed my wrist. Pain exploded up my arm. Her fingers squeezed so tightly that I thought my bones were going to crack. My hand went numb, and my heart pounded so hard I could feel it beating through the place where she held me. "Please stop." The voice was shaking. A girl's voice. Ella, she was standing a few desks away. Her eyelids were swollen from crying. Her face was red and wet with tears, and there was blood all over the front of her shirt. I did not know if it was hers. The teacher's grip loosened slightly. Her head turned toward Ella. "This does not affect you," she hissed. "Stay out of it." For 1 second, she was not focused on me. That was my chance. If I wanted to live, I had to take it. I grabbed the pencil from my desk, clenched it in my hand, and drove it into the side of her neck. The teacher let out a sound that did not belong in a human throat. Her fingers opened, and I tore my arm free. She hit the floor, twisting and jerking, her body moving in sharp, unnatural spasms. I shoved desks out of my way and motioned desperately for Ella to follow me. "Come on," I shouted. Ella stumbled toward me, stepping over bodies, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I looked back once. The teacher's mouth had stretched into a huge black hole. It looked like all the darkness in the room had gathered inside her face. Then she screamed. Ella and I ran. Behind us, desks crashed into each other as the teacher thrashed and tried to get up. The sound followed us out of the classroom and into the hall, metal legs scraping, chairs tipping, glass breaking somewhere behind us. We needed distance. That was all I could think about. Get as far away from her as possible. The school was big. That was the only good thing. There were classrooms, closets, bathrooms, storage rooms, stairwells, and places to crawl under or hide behind. It would take time for her to search all of them. At least, that was what I tried to tell myself. A loud crash came from somewhere down the hall. Ella screamed. I looked back and saw a desk flying out of the classroom doorway. It hit a row of lockers hard enough to leave a dent, then dropped to the floor. A twisted screech followed it. She was back up. My spine went cold. My legs almost gave out, but I forced them to keep moving. The campus was huge and confusing. I had been at that school for almost 2 years, and I still did not fully understand the layout. Every hallway looked too similar when you were running for your life. Every turn felt wrong. I did not really know where we were going. I only knew we had to keep moving. Our teacher would not be slow for long, and we did not have the luxury of time. Then Ella suddenly turned toward the stairs. "No!" I shouted. "Stop! We need to leave. If we go upstairs, we'll be trapped." She did not listen. Her face was twisted with fear, and I do not think she even heard me. She just kept running up the steps like her body had chosen a direction and her mind could not stop it. Ella. Why was I following her? Why was I trying to save this girl? Maybe because she had just saved me. Maybe because if I left her behind, I would hear her screams for the rest of my life. Maybe because, even with all that fear pounding through me, I knew I could not carry one more death on my conscience. I ran after her. By the time I reached the top of the stairs, Ella was already heading toward the girls' restroom. "Damn it," I whispered. That was the worst place she could go. A bathroom had one way in and one way out. If the teacher found us there, we would be cornered. But Ella was already inside. I followed her. Walking into the girls' restroom felt strange and wrong, but that did not matter anymore. Nothing normal mattered anymore. I turned the corner and saw Ella huddled near the wall. She flinched when she saw me, like I had scared her. "Ella," I said, gasping for air, "you have to get out of here." "We're screwed," she cried. It doesn't matter what we do." She slid down into the corner and wrapped her arms around herself. She was shaking so hard her whole body seemed to vibrate. "Look, at least get into a stall," I said. "You're going to die if you stay there." As soon as I said it, I knew it was not enough. I should not have been encouraging her to hide. Hiding was only temporary. We had to get out of that bathroom before the teacher found us. "How are we supposed to get out?" Ella yelled. Her voice carried too far. It bounced off the tiles and out into the hallway. I rushed forward and covered her mouth with my hand. My whole body was trembling. Ella's eyes widened as she looked down at the dried blood on my hand. She pulled at my wrist, and I moved my hand away. "I know you're scared," I whispered. "I am too. But we won't survive in here." I reached out to her. "Please get up. I want to live just as much as you do." Ella looked at my hand. For a second, I thought she was going to take it. Then a scream erupted from downstairs. It was distant, but it tore through the school like a knife. Ella pulled away from me and curled back into herself, whimpering. My heart sank. There was no way she was going to move now. So, what was I supposed to do? Leave her? "Just go," she mumbled. "I don't want to watch you die." I stared at her. She looked so small in that corner, so terrified, so certain that she was already dead. I could not leave her like that. I had already watched too many people die today. I slid down the wall beside her and sat on the floor. "I'm not leaving you here," I said. "I'm going to stay until I can convince you to get up." She slowly lifted her head from her arms. "I know I'm pathetic," she whispered, "but my body won't move." "You're not pathetic," I said. "I get it. Our lives are on the line. I'm scared to do anything too. But if we stay here, she'll find us. We can wait a little longer, but when it is time to go, I need you to do everything you can to move." "Okay?" Ella wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I can try." "Good enough," I sighed. The restroom became quiet except for Ella's soft crying. Usually, sitting beside someone while they cried would have made me uncomfortable. I would not have known what to say or where to look. But in that moment, it felt almost normal. At least it was human. At least her crying reminded me that I was not alone. Outside the bathroom, the school was not quiet. Far away, we heard howling, shouting, sometimes crashing, sometimes nothing at all, and the silence was worse. I lifted my hands to my face and saw the marks on my wrist. Purple bruises were already forming where the teacher had grabbed me. Finger-shaped marks. She had almost broken my wrist just by holding it. At least I got away. Then I thought of Ben. I had watched his eyes roll back. I had watched his body jerk and convulse when she pressed one finger into his forehead. I had sat there helpless while my friends were ripped apart, one by one. My eyes filled with tears. I felt pathetic. Ella raised her head and looked at me. She did not need to ask why I was crying. She knew. She reached out and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I did not realize how badly I needed that until it happened. After all the screaming, blood, and fear, I never thought I would feel the warmth of a kind touch again. For a few minutes, we just sat there together. Two kids on a bathroom floor trying not to die. Then Ella wiped her face and broke the silence. "Have you ever been to El Pollo?" she asked. I turned and stared at her. "What?" "It's a Mexican restaurant," she said, sniffling. "It's been around since my dad moved here. When I was little, we went every Sunday after church. I always got queso and chips, way more than any 9-year-old could eat." I let out a small, confused laugh. "Why are you telling me this?" "I don't know. she said. Part of me wants to know the person I'm stuck here with, and part of me thinks small talk might stop me from losing my mind. I looked at her for a moment. She was right. Silence helped only for a little while. After that, your mind started wandering back to everything you were trying not to think about. I just moved here, I said, sometime last February, right before Valentine's Day. We're not exactly rich, so we usually eat at home. So you haven't tried anything around here? I didn't say that, I said. We get McDonald's sometimes. Ella actually smiled. Wow, my bad. Looks like you're a man of real culture. Okay, maybe McDonald's isn't exactly fine dining, I said, raising my chin, but my mom's food is better than any chips and queso you could ever have. Oh yeah? Last Wednesday she made her famous chili, I said. I promise you, it was better than anything at El Pollo. Hey, no judgment, Ella said. I just think McDonald's doesn't count as real food. But you're right about one thing. Moms make the best food. I looked down at my hands. Yeah, I said quietly. My mom is like that. She's always trying to make things better. Without thinking, I rubbed the bracelet on my wrist again. Ella noticed. Where did you get that? She asked. Oh, I said, looking down at it. My mom gave it to me after my dad died. She said I should wear it so I would never feel alone. Ella's expression softened. Yeah, she said. I know what you mean. She placed her hand over mine and smiled. That was when we heard it. Sirens, for the first time since this nightmare began. I thought we might actually survive. The sound was distant, but it was real. Police, ambulances, help well, I said, trying to smile. How about this? If we make it out of here alive, you have to take me out to dinner. Ella hesitated. Then she slowly pulled her hand away. For a second, I thought I had ruined the moment. Maybe it was the dinner thing. Maybe it was saying if we made it out alive. Maybe I had reminded her too much of what was happening. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to. It's fine, she whispered. I'd love to have dinner. I just don't know if we'll make it out. Her eyes filled with tears again. This campus is huge. There's no way they'll find us before she does. I did not know what to say. I wanted to tell her that help was coming. I wanted to promise her we would survive. But I could not make myself lie. Then I realized something. The school had gone quiet. No screaming, no crashing, no banging from the halls. Too quiet. A chill moved down my back. It felt like someone was listening. A sudden metallic clang came from the vent. Both of us flinched. For 1 second, my heart stopped. Then I heard air rushing from the vent, and I almost laughed from relief. It's just the heat, I said. But Ella did not relax. She stared at the vent, her face going pale. Hey, I whispered. Don't worry. It's just the air, shh, she hissed. Her eyes stayed locked on the vent. Then she whispered, Do you remember when it first got here? I frowned. Then I understood. When we were first trapped, our teacher told us she had destroyed the heating unit. Jackson asked why, and she stabbed him through the mouth before he could say anything else. After that, she calmly told the rest of us she had turned the heat off because she liked it chilly, so the air coming from the vent could not be the heater. It was here. My breathing became uneven. The vent rattled. Tiny bolts shook in place. We had stayed too long. We have to go, I said. I pushed myself up against the wall. Ella did not move. Ella, I snapped. We have to go now. Small pieces of metal fell from the vent and hit the tile. Ella looked at the screws, then at me. Her face was white. She was not going to move on her own. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit. The vent cover blasted off the wall and crashed to the floor. Ella yelped and tripped over her own feet, but I kept pulling her. We burst into the hallway together. For half a second, the bathroom door stayed open behind us, and we both looked back. Our teacher was crawling out of the vent. Her body was twisted in a way that made no sense. Her chest faced the ceiling, but her head hung backward. Her mouth gaped open, and her eyes were black, empty holes. We ran. The stairs were just down the hall. Ella started keeping pace with me, and I finally let go of her hand. We might make it. We were close. Then the bathroom door exploded outward. The teacher tore through it like it was paper. The door flew across the hall and skidded over the floor. She shrieked. Then she charged after us on all fours. The sound was worse than the scream. Wet hands slapping against the tile, nails scraping, joints popping. Ella started wheezing. Her steps became uneven, and she drifted toward the lockers. No, the teacher was gaining. If Ella slowed down, it would catch her. She would die while I ran to safety. I could not let that happen. This girl had spoken up for me in the classroom even though she knew she might be killed for it. My body moved before I fully decided what to do. I turned back. Ella's eyes met mine as I spun toward her. "I'm sorry," I shouted. Then I slammed my shoulder into her, pushing her toward the stairs. "Run." Before she could answer, I turned and charged at the thing behind us. I locked eyes with it as I ran. For 1 second, fear almost stopped me. Then it leaped. I threw my arms up on instinct. My hand hit its face. It shrieked and fell back, but before I could even understand what had happened, it sprang forward again. Its hands clamped onto my shoulder. Then its teeth sank in. I screamed. The pain was beyond anything I had ever felt. Hot and sharp and deep, spreading through my entire body. It jerked backward, trying to tear my shoulder open. I grabbed at its neck, trying to keep it from pulling away with a piece of me, but its skin was slick with some dark ooze. My hands slipped. "Dylan." Ella screamed somewhere behind me. A wet, tearing sound drowned her out. The creature ripped a chunk from my shoulder. It dropped to the floor and recoiled for a second. I staggered backward, unable to understand where I was. The edges of my vision darkened. I hit a locker hard and slid down to the floor. The teacher stared at me. She was smiling while she chewed. Her body jerked. Something inside her snapped. Slowly, she lifted herself from all fours. Bones shifted under her skin. Her spine bent back into place. Her shoulders rolled. Her head straightened. And then she was standing like a person again. Our teacher was back. I was going to die. This could not be how I died. Please stop. She spat my torn flesh onto the floor and stepped toward me. "Dylan," she sang. "That is not how you treat an adult." Her voice began to warp at the edges, and anger slid into every word. I tried to speak, but I could not get enough air. My head felt too heavy. Where was Ella? Had she gotten away? "Mom, I just wanted to go home. I wanted my mother to hug me." My head dipped forward. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," the teacher snapped. She grabbed my hair and yanked my head up. Pain burned through my scalp, and for a second I thought she might rip the skin right off my skull. Then I heard sirens again, closer this time. The teacher went still. For 1 small second, I thought maybe she was scared. Then a smile spread across her face. "Oh, Dylan," she said softly. If only they had gotten here sooner. Her hand lifted toward my neck. You should have been a better student. You were so close to passing. Her cold fingers wrapped gently around my throat. She caressed my skin like she was comforting me. But do not worry, she whispered. Ella failed too. And I will make sure she gets the grade she deserves. Her smile vanished. Then her fingers tightened. I'm sorry, Dylan. That was the only thought in my head as I ran. Why couldn't I have kept up? It should have been me. The sirens were louder now. I tried to follow them, but every step made them sound both closer and farther away. My head hurt so badly that I thought I might throw up. The hallway twisted in front of me. The walls seemed to bend and move. Was I even running straight? Keep moving. Just go. Go, I saw the wall too late. I slammed into it. Everything went black. Hey, can you hear me? She's waking up. Head trauma. Possible vasovagal response? The voices were distorted and buried under a loud ringing in my ears. Everything was too bright. My vision was blurry. Shapes moved above me, but I could not focus on their faces. Where was Dylan? She needs fluids. I tried to speak. Dill. I lurched forward and started coughing. My throat burned. Try to stay still for me, okay? A man said. We're going to get you some water. Just hang tight another minute. My senses came back in pieces. First sound, then light, then touch. Hands moved around me. Straps tightened across my chest and arms. Red and blue lights flashed everywhere, too bright to look at. Voices overlapped around me, orders, radios, people calling out names, police officers asking questions, students crying. I was outside. I had made it out. But where was Dylan? An out-of-breath woman rushed over and handed a plastic water bottle to the man strapping me down. Then she hurried away again. Here, the man said. Small sips. He tilted my chin gently and let a little water into my mouth. It went down wrong, sharp and painful. I coughed hard enough to make my head throb, and he pulled the bottle away. After a moment, my throat loosened. I could breathe a little easier. But I needed to know where Dylan was. We had just been in the bathroom. I had been holding his hand. What happened? Why did none of this make sense? The voices of students nearby were hard to ignore. There was a huge boom, and our whole class, I was in the bathroom when. The intercom went off, we all just ran, no one knows what happened. A police officer stood in front of a group of students, clearly overwhelmed. He could not write down everything fast enough. All right, slow down, he shouted. One at a time. Tie-dye, you go first. Near the group, a boy was sobbing while a girl rubbed his back. I recognized him. Ben's little brother. He lifted his head, and our eyes met. I looked away. Why did I get to live? No. Why me? Why did she come after us? All around me, parents were pulling their children into their arms. Friends were crying and laughing with shaky relief because they had survived. Teachers stood in small groups, pale and lost. It felt wrong. They had no idea what had really happened inside. Sons, daughters, friends, teammates, brothers, sisters, gone, and somehow I was still here. Ready? One of the paramedics said. 1, 2, 3, the stretcher lifted beneath me. My body shifted, and pain flashed through my head. Watch her head. There was a click, and then they slid me deeper into the ambulance. Wait, I whimpered. Dylan. My voice sounded weak. Barely there. The two paramedics looked at me. One of them gave me a reassuring nod. They're still clearing the building, he said. We'll find out soon, okay? He reached for the ambulance door. I grabbed his hand. I have to find Dylan, I whispered. Please, not yet. He hesitated. I knew he was trying to help me. I knew he could not just let me climb out and run back toward the school. But I needed to see Dylan. I needed to know he was okay. The man gently pulled his hand away and continued closing the door. My heart dropped. Dylan had to be out there, somewhere in the crowd, somewhere among the flashing lights and crying students. If they would just let me out of the ambulance, I could find him. Through the window, I looked out at the crowd. My vision flashed. My head throbbed. Then I saw her. No, I blinked. She was still there, standing outside, talking to a police officer like she belonged there, like she was just another adult helping with the emergency. Her eyes shifted toward me. No, not shifted. They found me. Like she had already been watching. She raised one hand and waved. My head throbbed harder. My vision flickered. Her heart rate is spiking, someone said. No, a small smile spread across her face. On her wrist I saw the bracelet, Dylan's bracelet, and then I remembered. Dylan had grabbed the teacher's face when he attacked her. His hand had touched her, the same hand wearing the bracelet. She had not just killed him, she had taken him. I remember now Dylan,